There comes a point in every person's life when they must look in the mirror, not to judge, not to fix, but to truly see. That moment, quiet and uncomfortable, is often when we start to recognize the subtle, creeping voice of victimhood within us. Escaping the Victim Mentality is not a book that shouts from mountaintops or promises quick fixes. Instead, it gently takes your hand and guides you through the tender, sometimes painful terrain of the self, of patterns learned long ago, of wounds left unhealed, and of strength forgotten under the weight of blame, fear, and resignation. At its core, this book is an invitation to reclaim authorship of your life. It begins by helping us understand what the victim mentality actually is, not in the dramatic sense we often think of, but in the quiet, persistent ways it shows up. It's in the stories we tell ourselves. Life is unfair. Why does this always happen to me? If only they hadn't done that, I would be happy. These thoughts, repeated often enough, become part of our identity. The author explains that victim mentality is not about the events that have happened to us, it's about how we've chosen to interpret them and the power we either give away or reclaim through those interpretations. What makes this book so impactful is the way it compassionately recognizes pain without glorifying it. The author does not diminish suffering or suggest that people just think positive. Instead, they validate the very real traumas many of us have experienced: childhood neglect, betrayal, job loss, abuse, or the ache of dreams that never came true. But then, they gently lead us beyond the pain, showing us that while our past may have shaped us, it does not have to define us. That distinction is everything. In one chapter, a story is shared about a man named Daniel who, after losing his job and facing a series of personal failures, spiraled into hopelessness. He blamed the economy, his upbringing, his former boss, even his wife's lack of support. Every conversation became a monologue of grievances. But then, in a moment of grace, or perhaps just exhaustion, he realized he was tired of his own narrative. He wasn't angry at the world, he was angry at feeling powerless in it. Through self-reflection, therapy, and effort, he began to rewrite the story he was telling himself. He moved from, "They ruined my life," to, "I allowed myself to stay stuck, but I can choose differently now." That shift didn't erase the past, but it redefined his future. This story is a mirror for many of us. How often do we cling to our wounds not just out of pain, but out of habit? The book teaches that the victim mindset is seductive because it offers certainty. If we are not responsible, then we are not to blame. But hidden in that is also the truth that if we are not responsible, then we are not capable of change either. True freedom comes when we stop waiting for others to make things right, and instead ask, what can I do with what I have, right now? Another powerful message woven throughout the book is the difference between fault and responsibility. This distinction is liberating. It may not be your fault that you were mistreated, abandoned, or misunderstood. But it is your responsibility to heal. No one else can walk that journey for you. And while that may sound daunting, it is also the most empowering truth you can embrace. The author uses the metaphor of a garden. You didn't plant all the weeds, but it's your garden. No one else is coming to tend it. And buried underneath the overgrowth is still the soil of your potential, waiting, willing, alive. The author also dives into the role of language and thought patterns. Our inner dialogue is the architecture of our reality. Simple changes, shifting from, "I can't," to, "I haven't yet," or from, "This always happens to me," to, "This is happening, and I get to choose how I respond," can open mental and emotional doors we didn't even realize were locked. These may seem like small things, but over time, they become the lens through which we see the world. And if you change the lens, you change the experience. Real-life examples bring this to life in remarkable ways. One woman, Marissa, was raised in a household where love was conditional. As an adult, she found herself in toxic relationships, constantly seeking validation and wondering why she kept being mistreated. Her healing began not when she found the right partner, but when she stopped asking others to fill a void she hadn't acknowledged within herself. The author notes that when we stop seeing life as something that happens to us and begin to see it as something we actively shape, we start to attract different experiences, because we begin to expect more from ourselves, not just others. The spiritual thread in the book is profound but gentle. It does not preach, but it does remind us that we are not our pain. We are not our mistakes, our losses, or even our circumstances. We are the awareness behind it all, the consciousness that can observe, reflect, choose, and grow. The author speaks of surrender, not as giving up, but as letting go of the illusion that we must control everything or wait for everything to be perfect before we move forward. Surrender, in this context, means trusting that even in pain, there is purpose. Even in confusion, there is clarity waiting to emerge, if we have the courage to look inward rather than outward for answers. Practical tools are offered throughout: journaling prompts, mindfulness exercises, questions for reflection. But more than that, the book provides a shift in worldview. It suggests that we begin each day not with the question, "What will go wrong today?" but with, "How will I rise today?" That single question reorients our inner compass toward growth, not grievance. In the later chapters, the transformation becomes evident, not just in the characters' lives, but in the reader's heart. There is a subtle, yet powerful, momentum that builds, one that moves us from identification with our pain to alignment with our power. The victim says, "Life is happening to me." The survivor says, "Life happened, but I made it through." And the creator says, "Life is happening for me, and I am shaping what comes next." The journey of the book is from victim to creator. It is not a straight line, nor a simple one, but it is real, raw, and remarkably human. One of the most beautiful lessons the book offers is the reminder that healing is not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about peeling back the layers of pain, shame, and stories that no longer serve you, and discovering that underneath it all, you were never broken. You were buried, and now, you rise. As the book draws to a close, it does not tie everything up in a neat bow. Life is messy, and healing is nonlinear. But it leaves you with something more lasting than answers. It leaves you with questions that awaken. Where am I still holding on to blame? What story have I outgrown? What truth have I been afraid to speak? What power have I yet to claim? These questions don't accuse, they invite, and in that invitation lies the beginning of your new life. Escaping the victim mentality is more than a book, it is a mirror, a map, and a gentle mentor. It doesn't promise that the road will be easy, but it does promise that the journey is worth it. It reminds us that we are not here to be defined by what happened to us, we are here to define what happens next. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful truth of all, because in the end, it is not about erasing the past, but about choosing a future where we no longer hand our power to the pain. A future where we walk forward, not as victims of life, but as conscious creators of it.